We are in Parashat Bamidbar. We're starting a new Chumash, a new period. Like I mentioned before, we are in Bamidbar. America, the diaspora is still a week back. But nevertheless, we are starting a whole new Chumash. And this is a very important book from all the books, because we know that most of the Torah was said in the desert. And Bereshit is already just the historical part before that. The beginning of Shemot is Egypt, but after we leave Egypt, most of the Torah is in the desert. And we don't know much of what was going on in the desert. And in the Chumash of Bamidbar, then we learn what was going on in the desert. Where did they live? How did they live? Who did what? Can you imagine sometimes going into history? How did they live 500 years ago in Spain? How did they live 1,000 years ago in Iraq? Can you imagine if we had some time machine to go and see how they lived there? It would be very, very interesting. But nevertheless, in this week's parasha, there's one very profound message that I at least find that is not only so practical, but I see it so obvious in front of my eyes. And I think that everybody needs to not only listen to the biblical explanation of what we're going to do, but rather take note, how is that affecting me? Because I see that most people, if they pay attention, they'll see that they're in that group, which is not good. And to explain more what I'm talking about, there was a great sage, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. He once asked a group of his students, what do you think is the most important attribute to have? One person said, a chaver tov, to have a good friend around me. Another person says, shachen tov, a good neighbor. Another rabbi said, no, I think to have a good eye. Good eye means not to be judgmental and to see good in things. And each one said something else. The majority of the rabbis, they said an attribute that I have in me. Ain tova, ruach shfela, and so forth. To have a good eye, to have a low spirit. Why? Because I make myself humble. But nevertheless, there was one rabbi who answered, no, what's important the most is shachen tov. Shachen tov means a good neighbor. All the rest answered with an attribute that is personal. This rabbi answered, no, chaver tov, shachen tov, a good neighbor. That's the most important thing in life. And very interestingly, also Shlomo HaMelech in the book of Mishlei, in Proverbs, he also says, tov shachen tov me'ach rachok. Good to have a good neighbor than a faraway brother. This can be found in the book of Mishlei, chapter Kaf Zayin, 27. And very interestingly, in Birkot HaShachar, in the morning prayers, we ask Hashem for Him to save us from a group of people. And one of the people that we ask Hashem to save us is a shachen ra, is a bad neighbor. I don't know if you ever notice what you're reading. Most people, they read, they don't even notice what they're reading. They're doing it so fast. Or they're doing it on the train or on the bus, or they're not even doing it. If you want to be a very happy individual and you want to have a very successful day, take 3-4 minutes in the morning to say the morning prayers with the most intense thought and focus on what you're saying. You'll have a very good day. That's how our sages lay down, thank you, the day. And one of the things that we're asking Hashem in the morning, v'tatzileni michaver ra, mipega ra, miyetzer ra, mishachen ra. Save me from a bad neighbor. So today we're going to talk about something very, very, very important, and that's shchenut, my neighbors. Who are my neighbors? Where do I put myself? And if I would title the class, Who Are Your Neighbors? We won't get such a good reaction. But we want to know who your neighbors are, because your neighbors are very, very profound in your life. And what does the neighbors have to do with the Torah, and especially with this parasha? Because I said already that the book of Bamidbar is talking about the life in the desert. Just imagine a soap opera, life in the desert. What did they do there all day long? Where did they shop? Where did they eat? What did they eat? What did they wear? Who did they interact with? They didn't have Facebook and they didn't have WhatsApp. What did they do in the desert all day long? Wouldn't you want to have a documentary on the life in the desert? That would be pretty amazing. But nevertheless, the whole Chumash of Bamidbar is talking to me what was happening in the desert. And there was it's a lot of stories. It's not necessarily Vaikra, a lot of mitzvot, a lot of details about sacrifices and so forth. Bamidbar is stories that happened in the desert. Very soon, we're going to read about the whole machloket of Korach, what was going on in the desert. Now, they're running again to elections in Israel. This is what's going on in the media, in the newspapers. Also in Bamidbar. Don't you think there was the newspapers covered the whole machloket with Korach? Don't you think it was just 2 minutes? It was a whole period. And there was reporters there, Baruch Hashem. There wasn't CNN and ABC and NBC and all this to report what was going on. But there was a whole argument there with Korach. That's one issue. Later on, we learn about the time that Miriam was talking behind the back about Moshe. She got punished too with Tzarat, Lashon Hara. And Chumash of Bamidbar is talking about what was going on in the desert. Now, in this week's parasha, it's focusing specifically on how they lived in the desert. And there was a very organized way how they lived in the desert. Don't forget that they went on to many journeys. And every journey, wrap it all up and go. Then they arrive somewhere. Now they have to unload the trucks, the wagons, of course, no trucks, and start building everything together. There was a very precise order where everything went. It wasn't like some mess. Everything was organized till the last stone was already thought and organized. And everybody knew where his tent goes, where is my tent, where is your tent. Everybody knew it. Now this is not 500 people. This is 3 million people. 4 million people moving around in the desert in a very, very organized way. Suddenly the cloud stops. Okay guys, that's where we're resting. Just imagine the scene. If you would bring now this to a Hollywood production, how would the scene look? 3 million people unloading wagons, building everything. In a matter of hours, everything is already assembled. It has to be hours. If not, where are you going to sleep? We just parked here. Now we're going to take 3 weeks to build a camp? No, it has to be in a few hours. Because tonight I have to sleep. Everything was precise, organized. Just imagine the system they ran in the desert. The Midrash says that they, every time they parked, then they went in a certain form. They carried everything in a certain form, and they also parked in the same form. And the Midrash says that the way they were parked in the desert is how Yaakov instructed the tribes to carry his coffin when he died. He died in Mitzrayim. They all took it up to Eretz Israel, to Canaan, and he already told them how they're going to carry it. The Midrash says that's exactly how they parked in the desert. And the way it worked, the Mishkan was always in the center, and the rest of the nation was all around the Mishkan in a square way, in a very precise way. If you're looking at it from above, if you're looking from Google Maps, then, that's my addition, then they were in 2 circles. If you're looking at it from above, just imagine the engineer that did the structure there. But nevertheless, if you're looking at it from the top, then will be the Mishkan in the middle, and then 2 circles around the Mishkan. What are these circles? The first circle was the camp of the Leviim. So you have in the middle the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And on the east side of the tabernacle is the tent of Moshe and Aaron. In the south side was the family of Kihat. On the west side was the family of Gershon. And on the north side, the family of Merari. These are just the beginning. This is the first ring of just the Leviim. Why? Their job was to carry everything, assemble everything, and so forth. Then you have another ring around them, and that other ring was all the rest of the nation. And it was divided into 3 tribes to every side. 12 tribes, 3 on each side. And the order was very, very precise. So again, you have the Mishkan in the middle, then you have the first ring. On the east side, again, just to say it again, Moshe and Aaron was on the east. On the south is the family of Kihat, west is the family of Gershon, and north is the family of Merari, like in squares. Then you have another ring, you have the rest of the nation. So you have on one side, on the east side of the structure, you have three tribes, Issachar, Yehuda, and Zvulun. And each three tribes were called Machaneh, a camp. So on the east side, you don't have to memorize it now, I'm just trying to give you the overall structure. On the east side, you have Issachar, Yehuda, and Zvulun, but this was called Machaneh Yehuda, the camp of Yehuda. And everybody had a flag and a symbol and an order how they were. So again, on the east side, you have Issachar, Yehuda, and Zvulun. On the other side, which was on the west side, you have Menashe, Ephraim, and Binyamin. This was called Machaneh Ephraim. Then you have on the north, Naphtali, Dan, Ve'asher. This was called Machaneh Dan. And then on the south would be Shimon, Reuven, and Gad. And this was called Machaneh Reuven. And this was the south. This was the order. And you're talking here about millions of people. It's not talking about here 500 people. You're talking here about a massive amount of people. Now, this was the order how they would camp. Just imagine getting up, taking everything apart, throwing it all on the wagons, and let's go. Where are we going? I don't know. Wherever the GPS will tell us. The camp is going after the cloud. The cloud stops. Okay, guys. And with a few hours, whoop, the whole camp is built up again. It was built in such a precise way that everybody knew already where's their tent. So you know who's in front of you, you know who's next to you, you know who are all your neighbors. In our generation, when you go to buy a house, then you look for two things. That's most people. You look for the area, what's called in Hebrew, we call it kivonei avir. What are the angles? I don't want to be on the south side, I don't want to be on the east side. Some people, they buy a house according to how the house is positioned. I want to have a view to this area, not to that area. Some people are sensitive to the sun. They don't want to be in the south the whole day because the whole day will be sunny. Whatever it is, you're looking for where the house is positioned. This is one way of how you're looking for property. And of course, the next thing is, who are your neighbors? Well, what's the neighborhood here? Who lives here? Maybe the neighborhood is not appropriate for me. I remember that after we had our second child, and we lived in New York at the time, and I wasn't a great fan of New York, and I was looking to go somewhere else. Okay, so we went somewhere in New Jersey to look to live. Okay, the realtor took us around this property, that property. At some point, she says, "Oh, I have a gorgeous property. I have to show you." Okay, so she brought us to the property from this side. Okay, and of course, like a good real estate agent, she showed us all the good parts, and then later, the last, she showed us that on the other side of the house is a cemetery. And she thought that I will not like it. So I said, "Oh, these are the best neighbors." She was like, "What?" I says, "Well, there's not going to be noise here. These are the best neighbors to live next to." And then I told her a joke. She didn't seem to get the joke, and I told her, "You know, the cemetery is the best place to be. People are dying to get there." She didn't get the joke. But nevertheless, so when you go to choose a house to live, you're looking to the neighbors. Who are the neighbors? Who lives here? Now, let's ignore for a second the neighbors. Let's concentrate on what's called kivonei avir, the direction where the house is facing. Some people can care less. Some people, when they go and buy a property, they want to see how's the house positioned, because if I want to have sun the whole day, my house has to be pointed to the south, because the sun is in the south all day long. So I want my house to be lit up and sunny. Some people, they live in a place, especially in Israel, you don't want the sun on you all day long. Then the house will be like a sauna. You're going to have very thick drapes. So people look for the direction. Now, if we're looking for a second to the directions and how they were parked in the desert, so on the east, they had Moshe and Aaron. So this was considered the best side, facing the east. Why? That's when the sun goes up. So Moshe and Aaron were placed in the east. In the south were placed the sons of the family of Kihat. In the west was the family of Gershon, and in the north was the family of Merari. These were the directions, and it didn't change. They were all constantly the same direction. There's a commentary written by the Abarbanel, and he says the way how they were set up was exactly like an army. It was a very military approach. And he explains that Yehuda was the first tribe in the front. Why? Because he was the strongest. They had a lot of people and they were the strongest. He was in the front. Any enemy that comes, they meet you. First of all, they meet Yehuda. He will crush everything on the way. And for example, Dan was the last one. He was the last tribe. They had the most people, but men, children, kids, the camp of Dan, they were the last one. They were the ones who were gathering everybody. But nevertheless, even the structure, how they were traveling and parked, was in a very profound way, like a military. Now, if you're looking at the map from above, take a Google Earth look, then you'll see that it's not so fair how it's organized. We just spoke about in the class before about habits. Wouldn't it be fair that they would rotate? That every month or every year they switch directions? They were all, so to say, stuck in the same place. When you're looking at the map from above, one can say, wait a minute, that's not fair. He got a better place than me. How come he's here and I'm over there? It seems that the good ones were attached to the good ones, and the less good ones, or the bad ones, were attached to the bad ones. That's how it looks. And one can say, wait a minute, this is not fair. I want to be next to Moshe and Aaron. Why can't I be next to Moshe and Aaron? Who got to be next to Moshe and Aaron? Then you have only 3 tribes that were next to Moshe and Aaron. Moshe and Aaron was in the east. So there's only one camp on the east. Issachar, Yehuda, and Zvulun. That's not fair. I want to be next to Moshe. I want to be close to the king. I want to see Moshe when I wake up in the morning. That's fair? No. Now, if you're looking now at the tribes, the camp that was right next to Moshe Rabbeinu, again, Issachar, Yehuda, and Zvulun. These are the elite, so to say. Why they are the elite? Yehuda is the Malchut. All the kings came out of Yehuda. Issachar was the power of the Torah. All the sages came out of Issachar. And Zvulun is the money. Zvulun was the business. That's where the money was. So you have the Torah, the money, and the king. So these are like the elite of the tribes. That's next to Moshe and Aaron. Now, if you're looking at the south side of the city, who was in the south? Kihat. Who's the son of Kihat? Korach. Korach was a little shmegeg. Wasn't such a star. So the son of Korach, he became a troublemaker. You know what Korach is? Korach, we're going to learn about him in a few weeks. Now, who is next to Korach? If you're looking at the south side, I know it sounds like a slang, the south side of the city. But who's at the south? Oh, Kihat was there. Who was the son of Kihat? Korach. He wasn't such a good character. Who were the tribes next to Kihat? Shimon, Reuven, and Gad. Reuven was the whole tribe that went after Korach. A whole tribe went after Korach. Can you imagine? So you see here, wait a minute. This does not seem to be fair. Maybe if I would live next to Moshe Rabbeinu, maybe I would also be good. You're putting me now in the south side of the city in the project. Now you're expecting me not to be going into trouble? So one can argue and say, wait a minute, this is not fair. The Midrash says that about Reuven and Shimon and Gad, that because of their position, they carried away, they went where they went after Korach, because where their position. That's what the Midrash says. You're attached to somebody not good, you're going to go in that path too. Saying in a short way, what counts or what will determine is who are your neighbors. You're going to be in a bad neighborhood, most likely you'll be going in that direction too. You'll be in a good neighborhood, you'll go in a good place. Take now a kid, put him in a very high level yeshiva, he would learn Torah. Take a kid, put him now in some public school, he will attach to all the habits there. Okay, this is very, very general, just to place a little bit of an idea. Now let's go a little bit more deeper to understand what it's all about. But before we go deeper, I have to kind of explain the idea behind what I want to give over. And there's a story. I have told this story, if you remember, not too long ago in Hanukkah. I don't know if you remember, but I will say the story again. There's a certain individual. Her name was Miriam bat Bilga. At the time of the Greek, when they took over Bet HaMikdash, it was a period. It wasn't that it overnight came. It was a period that the Greek came, started taking over, and people slowly were becoming attached to the Greek attitude and so forth. But at the time, at the Bet HaMikdash was a family of Kohanim, very great yichus, a great lineage of Kohanim, and their last name was Bilga. Okay. They had one shift in the year, maybe 2 years, maybe 2 shifts in a whole year. That's what the Kohanim, every time a family will come, they had a shift. They had 1 or 2 shifts throughout the year. Okay. They had a girl, and her name was Miriam. And one time she went out to the streets, and you know what happened? She met a Greek boy, and they fell in love, and they got married. Ooh, can you imagine a daughter of a Kohanim, with a respectful family, and she goes off and marries a Greek person? Okay, the story says that one time the situation became worse and worse and worse, and the Greeks were already in Yerushalayim, contaminating the Mikdash and making a whole problem, as you know the whole story. The story says that one time she walked into the Bet HaMikdash, she took her shoe off, and she started banging on the Mizbeach, and she said, Locus, locus, wolf, wolf, ad matai ata mechale et mamonam shel Israel? How long are you going to take the money of the nation of Israel? They're coming with sacrifices, that's their money. Velo amod lahem be'et tzaratam. And you're not standing to them at the time of their need. So she came in, and again, in a very chutzpahdik way, banging on the altar and screaming to the altar, why are you taking the korbanot? Why are you taking the sacrifices? It's a lot of money. And you're not saving the Jews when they need you. Okay, this was a very profound action. It was not accepted very well by the rest of the Kohanim, and they were fined with a punishment. The whole family was fined. And they were punished in 3 severe sins. The first one, if you know about the concept now, there's no time to explain it too much, but there's a concept, I explained it 2 weeks ago, about what's called lechem apanim, the bread that they used to have inside. They got a punish that they're not getting the bread from the south, they're getting it from the north. So everybody sees that they're different. The second punishment, that all their knives of the slaughtering were taken away from them, so they don't have knives how to slaughter. I mean, the Kohanim are shochtim, they have to slaughter animals all day long. All the knives were taken from them. And the third thing, the way they used to slaughter, now they have machines, they turn the whole cow upside down. The Bet HaMikdash, they had rings where the cow would put the head, the ring would put the cow to the ground. That's how they would be able to slaughter the cow, the bull, big animals. So that was taken away too. So they had to constantly borrow from other Kohanim, their knives and the rings. Anyways, they were punished in 3 punishments. Now comes a big question that the Talmud presents. If she made a sin, the daughter, why are you punishing the whole family? The whole family? Punish her. So the Gemara says here that the kid says what she hears at home. That's usually the case. Sometimes you hear a kid talking, you're saying, where's the kid taking this from? He probably hears it at home. So same thing here. She came and made in a very offensive way, talking bad about the Bet HaMikdash, about the altar. Most likely she hears that at home. And therefore, all the family gets punished. Here the Gemara also says a very famous quote, Oy la'rasha, oy l'shcheno. Oh, if that person is wicked, the neighbor will be affected also. Which means that if she's like that, the entire family is like that. That's where you see again that Reuven got affected by Korach. So when you're looking at this specific story, one might ask, so what's the big deal with the neighbor? So what if my neighbor is a bad neighbor? That's it, and that means that I'm bad. So our sages say that a bad neighbor will hurt you. What does it mean that the bad neighbor will hurt you? If you live now next to a mobster, you have to be careful because any day a grenade can be thrown into your house, right? You know, you see now in Israel, I don't know how it is in America. In Israel, you see every couple of days a car explodes. Here, this person is assassinated. Just a few days ago, a car exploded in the middle of the street and 3 people bypassed, got injured. So if you live next to the head of the mafia, you can expect a bullet flying out through the window at some point. So this is a very simple explanation that if your neighbor is wicked, you're in danger. So this is one example out of many. And there, of course, can be many other examples. If I live in a bad neighborhood, there's constantly going to be fights and arguments or disagreements. So when our sages say that a bad neighbor is actually a hazard to my health, this is one example out of many. But that's one thing. Okay, so don't live next to the head of the mafia or some gangster. But also, a bad neighbor is affecting me in a spiritual way, and it's affecting my soul. And there is a disagreement between the Midrash, between our sages in the Midrash and Rashi. And the Midrash, specifically in Midrash Tanchuma, says that we are not being affected by my bad neighbor. It's just a punishment. If I'm next to a bad neighbor, then it's kind of like a punishment. I have to suffer now. And I have to suffer the noise or the whatever it is. So the Midrash says, no, I don't get affected. I'm punished, so to say. Rashi says, on the other hand, that in the case of Reuven, they got dragged into the argument just because they were next to Korach. And Rashi says that they learn from his behavior. And when I'm next to a certain individual, I learn from their behavior. I see how they behave, and I start behaving like that too. That's what Rashi says. Rashi says, Adam nischaf achar svivato. The person will be dragged after his surrounding, or carried away because who's around him. And why? Because he listens and then he gets affected. And this is this is the point, what I was saying in the beginning, that if you really pay attention to the class, forget about now all the details, the biblical terms and the details that we're learning now. You have to hopefully listen between the lines what this parasha and what this whole class is about to tell us. And this is the first time when a person has to stop and say, what did you say? Yeah, Rashi says, and most people agree with him, I hear and I get affected. And what I hear from people around me will affect me. Now take that, keep it now on the side. We'll get to it back at the end of the class. But very, very important to understand that where I will position myself, what I would hear eventually will affect me. Doesn't matter how strong you are. And in order for me to understand that doesn't matter how strong you are, let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell you 2 stories, but I'll tell you first a more profound story. There is a sage known as Elazar ben Arach. If you remember before, I told you about the great sage Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai when he asked his students, and one student said, Shachen Tov, a good neighbor, that's Elazar ben Arach. Elazar ben Arach was the number 1 student of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And he was like the top student. One time, Yochanan ben Zakkai passed away. So Elazar ben Arach thought he will become the next leader. He was the top student. He was the right man of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. And now it's not so much the time to say the historical details about all these sages. Yochanan ben Zakkai was called Rabban, was one of the top sages we have in our history. Nevertheless, Elazar ben Arach was the top student. When Yochanan ben Zakkai died, Elazar ben Arach was sure he will become the next leader. Okay. And the rest of the students, the rest of the sages did not think so, and they said, no, we don't want you to be the next leader. We don't think so. He got very, very affected, very hurt, so he left Yavne. Yavne was the city of the Torah. That's where all the yeshivot was. That's where all the city of the Torah. He left Yavne. And he went to a different city, and the city called Dinset or Dinsit. This was the name of the city. This city was kind of like Las Vegas, the Sin City. All the fun, all the bars, the clubs, the gambling. That was the type of the city. Yavne was, Bnei Brak, where the Yerushalayim, all the Torah, and he went and he left the city. He was upset. Okay. Now, slowly, if you're not in a place of a Torah, so first he was with a black suit, then it became a blue suit, then it was no suit. Then one time he says, "Oh, here's a nice coffee shop. Maybe I'll have a cup of coffee before I go and learn." One time he sat in this coffee shop, then the next day, "Oh, this looks like a good restaurant. Maybe I'll have some food in this restaurant." And before you know it, every day was from restaurant to a coffee shop, from here, from there. And after 2 years, he was completely not in the path of Torah. Why? In Las Vegas, every day, different show, different restaurant, different coffee shop, the dress changed, everything changed. And at some point he was like, wait a minute, what's going on with me? After 2 years, he caught himself and he's like, I'm Elazar ben Arach. I'm one of the top students of Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. I'm sitting in restaurants having cup of coffees and shish kebabs. So it's not appropriated. He decided to go back to Yavne. Okay, he goes back to Yavne. Needless to say, he still got a lot of respect. He still was Elazar ben Arach. Everybody gave him an honor. And when he went to the synagogue, he was called up to the Torah. Monday, Thursday, and Shabbat, you take out the Torah, you usually call if there's somebody very honorable in the crowd, you call him up to the Torah. In the olden days, some congregations still have this custom, but in the olden days, whoever was called up to the Torah had to read from the Torah. And today, they don't do it because they don't want to embarrass people. Somebody will be called up to the Torah. Not too long ago, we called up somebody to the Torah. He's like, no. And the Gabbai tells him, why? No. And he's, no, I don't know how to read. So he told him, don't worry, you don't have to read. Just come up and say the bracha. He was sure that we were calling him to read out from the Torah. Nevertheless, in the olden days, and again, some communities still do it. Not too long ago, I was somewhere and they called me up to the Torah, and there wasn't even a question. They were expecting me. I was called up to the Torah. You read. Nevertheless, he was called up to the Torah, and he starts reading. And happened to be that fell on what's called Parashat HaChodesh, the parasha that is talking about the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. This is Parashat Bo. And he starts reading, and instead of reading HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem, he read HaCheresh Haya Libam. Changed the words completely. Completely changed the words. HaChodesh Hazeh Lachem means this month is going to be for you, talking about the mitzvah of Rosh Chodesh. And he read it, the deaf person, Haya Libam, he was completely ignorant. Completely messed up the words. And, excuse me? No, he got confused. He was so disattached from the Torah. 2 years living in Las Vegas. And this was a great sage. 2 years, I'm saying Las Vegas. Of course, I'm just calling it a sin city. But nevertheless, the Talmud says Dinsit. That was the name of the city. He was so involved in that city, and he became so away from the Torah that when he went up to the Torah, he forgot how to read. And it's not that he forgot the tune. He's reading it you see their own letters, and he read it completely different. So this is a proof from a story in the Talmud that the surrounding affects the person. Take now the best Torah scholar ever, put him in some Vegas, he will get affected there. No, how they say in Hebrew, lo yazor klum. You're in a bad area, you're in a bad surrounding, you'll be affected. On the other hand, there's another story that is completely different, completely other way around. And this is a story that I read not too long ago and happened about 200 years ago. And there was a great tzaddik known as the Tzemach Tzedek. He's the grandson of the Baal HaTanya. lived in the city called Lubavitch. And then, anyways, it was a very small town, and they heard that they're deciding to build a highway to cross through their little town. Building a highway in our little town? That doesn't sound good. Anyways, they didn't know what to do. They said, okay, let's get a few people and let's go to the main city and let's talk to the Minister of Transportation. Tell them, listen, it's a small town. We don't want a big highway going through our town. This is not going to be good. Okay. They find out who's the Ministry of Transportation, and what do you know? He's a Jew. And not stam a Jew. He was a student of the Baal Tanya that went off the derech, left the yeshiva, and went from one place to another, and he became the Minister of Transportation. Okay. They go up to him, they make a little committee, they go up to him, they tell him the situation, right away, no questions, no problem, tell me exactly the position, this is all cancelled. Don't worry, the highway will make a detour, you have nothing to worry about. Ooh, they were very happy, that was just like that, the problem was solved. Okay, so, being good Hasidim, they take out a bottle of mashke, let's say lechaim, and after they say lechaim, he tells them, I'm sure you're wondering why I just approved this just like that. Normally I would give you a hard time, any other person I would give a hard time, but let me tell you why I decided to right away to approve that this highway should not go through your town. And he says, 50 years ago, I was a student of the Baal Tanya, a direct student in his yeshiva. One day I decided to leave the yeshiva. And I knew this is a one-way direction. I'm leaving the yeshiva, I'm never coming back. Okay, but he said, I wanted to get a blessing from my Rebbe. So he goes to the Baal Tanya, Rabbi Shneur Zalman from Liadi, he's the founder of the movement of Chabad, of Lubavitch. And he goes to him and he tells him, I want you to give me a blessing, I'm going away from yeshiva. So the Baal Tanya told him, you know what, I want you to go to my dear friend, go to the city of Karlin. I have a very good friend there, Rabbi Aharon. He's the first Karliner, Rabbi Aharon from Karlin. Nevertheless, he says, go to him, he will give you a blessing. I think he will give you a much better blessing. Okay, so this person goes to Karlin, goes to Rabbi Aharon. He walks into the room and he sees him pacing backwards and forth, backwards and forth, backwards and forth. And he chanting in Yiddish, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God. He looks at him, thinks he's a little bit cuckoo, and he leaves the room. Okay. This man says, 50 years I'm completely not connected to Judaism. I left the yeshiva, and from there, the path was very fast to be away from Judaism. I went to university, from university, I went here, I went there, I went here and there, I did everything, and definitely nothing to do with Judaism. I'm 50 years living my life, I'm not like a Jew. But this sentence that the Rabbi Aaron from Karlin was saying was echoing in my mind for the last 50 years. Maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God, maybe there's a God. He was actually saying, the translation is, maybe there's a God in the world. Maybe there's a God in the world. And he says, 50 years, it's driving me nuts. It's echoing in my head, the sentence. And now that you came to me, I understood that I was sent all this way. So one time you come and ask me for a favor, I have the upper hand. I will be able to help. That's why I helped you right away, because this sentence is echoing in my mind. Maybe there's a God in the world, and you know what? Now I was proved that yes, I was wrong for 50 years. There is a God in the world. And that's why he approved it. So we see that sometimes it works on the complete other side. That a word of a tzaddik, a sentence of a tzaddik is so profound that a person 50 years later it will affect them. So it's not only that it's a bad surrounding will affect you badly, also a good surrounding. Take now any person and put him in a holy environment, he will become softer, kinder, more grateful, more holy. It works both ways. So, to go back to our topic, there is a book called the Book of Ikarim, Sefer HaIkarim, written by Yosef Albo, Rabbi Yosef Albo. And he says something very, very interesting there. He says some animals, their nature is to be loners. And they live by themselves. And these animals, if you put them together, even with their own family, they'll eat them. This is a type of animal. The animal is born and it goes away. Like a snake. Snakes don't live together. They're born and each one goes on their way. And there are animals in the wilderness, they're loners. What's interesting is that if you take the same types of animals, you put them all together, they'll eat each other. This is one type of animal. Then he says, there's another type of animal that they can live by themselves. But if you put them together in the same species, they'll be fine. Take, for example, a dog. Yeah, a dog can live by himself, no problem. You can take the dog away from the mother when he's 8-10 weeks, no problem. He will live his life by himself for the rest of his life. Put a bunch of dogs together, they'll get along together. A dog, a sheep, whatever. But he says there that human beings are completely different. Human beings must have company. Take now a person and put him in isolation. After 2 months, the person is completely cuckoo. He says there, Book of Ikarim, human beings are made, they have to be in a group. They have to be amongst other people. Take them away from other people, they really will go crazy. This is an observation made by the Sefer Ikarim. Now, a story to strengthen this idea. I'm sure you ever heard of Choni HaMe'agel. His grave is not too far away from here. You should go there. But nevertheless, there's a story with Choni HaMe'agel. Choni HaMe'agel sat once and he learned with his students Torah. What they were learning about? They were learning about a psalm of Tehillim from David HaMelech. Shir HaMa'alot Beshuv Hashem et Shivat Zion Einu Kecholmim. When Hashem will return His glory to Zion, we were as dreamers. And he asked the question, how can you compare the exile to a dream? Doesn't make sense. Now, this was after the first destruction, the destruction of the first temple. So there were 70 years in exile. So he says, there were 70 years in exile. How can you compare 70 years to a dream? Dream is like that. 70 years, you know what 70 years? And it's hard for us to imagine, but 70 years in exile was a big deal. Since he asked this question, Hashem answered him directly. Some people are not like us. Some people, they got a direct answer from the Kadosh Baruch Hu. The Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, okay, I'll give you an answer. And Choni HaMe'agel finds himself next to a situation, and he sees a person planting in the ground a tree. So he tells the person, what tree is that? He tells him, this is a carob tree. Okay, so Choni HaMe'agel tells the person, how long does it take for the carob tree to produce fruit? The man says, probably about 70 years. 70 years? You are now planting a tree that will only give fruit in 70 years? You're not going to enjoy the fruit. So the man told him, well, my grandfather planted a tree for me to enjoy, so I'm planting for my kids and my grandkids to enjoy. Choni HaMe'agel looks at him, okay, sits down, pulls out a sandwich, eats the sandwich, and goes to sleep. And he wakes up. He wakes up, he looks up, and what do you know? A huge carob tree. What's going on here? And he sees a man next to the carob tree. He tells him, wow, I had a long nap. Are you the man that I spoke to before? He tells him, I didn't speak with you. You were sleeping. He was like, you're not the man that I just spoke here that planted the tree? Man tells him, no, that was my grandfather. So he says, what do you mean your grandfather? I slept for 70 years? Yeah, you slept for 70 years. What do you know? Can you imagine sleeping for 70 years? Okay. He wakes up and he understands that 70 years passed. The Kadosh Baruch Hu is trying to teach him a lesson. Okay. He runs to his home. Nobody recognizes him. Knocks on the door. Who are you? I'm Choni. No, you're not. 70 years. Nobody knows how they look. Do you think the grandkids know how grandfather looked? Nobody recognizes him. Now he's going a little bit cuckoo. He runs to the yeshiva. He walks in. Nobody knows who he is. He's an old man. And the head of the yeshiva is teaching Torah, and he's so embarrassed and confused. He doesn't know what to do. He sits in the corner. And the head of the yeshiva says, I don't know what's going on today. It's like the light that is shining in this yeshiva. 70 years we didn't have this light. Since the day that Choni HaMe'agel disappeared, we didn't experience such a light. Now everything is so clear in my mind. All the answers, all the questions that I have answers to. Unbelievable. The light of Choni HaMagel returned. So he stands up and says, I'm Choni. Tell him, sir, sit down. I mean, relax. No, I'm telling you, I'm Choni HaMagel. Listen, sir, sit down. I know maybe you didn't take your pills today. Relax. Nobody believed him that he's Choni. He got so upset, so confused, that he prayed to Hashem, please take me. Please take me. And Hashem answered his prayer and he died on the spot. Rava is a sage from the Talmud, when he told this story, he concluded this entire story with 4 words that are pretty known in the Talmudic world. O chavruta, o matuta. Either you have friends and you're good to go, or better to be dead. If you don't have company, you don't have friends, nobody knows who you are, nobody recognizes you, you are a nobody, better to be dead. That's how Rava concluded the whole story. I'm telling you the story very short. Talmud goes into length in the story. But he concluded it in 4 words. O chavruta o matuta. If you have company around you, good. If not, better to be dead. And saying in other words, if I have friends, if I have acquaintances, I have a social life, good, I have what to live for. But if I'm excluded from the reality and I don't have anybody and I'm by myself, better to die than to be by yourself. So to conclude the whole thing, even Rambam, Maimonides, brings it down to halacha. This can be found in the book that is called Hilchot Deot. And he says there, Derech Bri'ato shel Adam, the way how a man is created, Liyot nimshach bedeotav u'ma'asav, to be pulled in his action and his opinions, achar re'av v'chaverav, after his friends and his neighbors. This is what Rambam brings it to halacha, that the way how we created our nature is to be pulled in my opinions and my actions based on the people around me. Now take this profound message and now apply it in your life. I can tell you firsthand that I see how people come into a place with one opinion, they're attached to 2-3 people, all it takes is a few weeks. The opinion is completely different. They see things completely different. That's why our sages say, Oy leshcheno, oy larasha, oy leshcheno. Oy, this one is a wicked person, you are next to him, you'll be wicked too. Reuven lived next to Korach. It took a few weeks, and Reuven went against Moshe Rabbeinu. I told you already that the founder of the movement of Satmar is known as the Ismach Moshe. In one of his books, in the introduction, I told you that story so many times. I don't want to repeat it now because we don't have time. I told you that story around the time of Chanukah many times. He was such a tzaddik, he knew all his reincarnations. And he says how he remembered being at the time of the machloket of Moshe Rabbeinu and Korach. And his students asked him, whose side did you took? He said the Yetzer Hara was so strong, everybody went against Moshe Rabbeinu. And they told him, so whose side did you take? He was like, I was neutral. I didn't take any side. That's how strong the Yetzer Hara was. Everybody go against Moshe Rabbeinu. Now we're going to read Parashat Korach very soon. Korach was so powerful, he gathered around him 250 heads of Sanhedrot, of heads of yeshivot and supreme courts. He was so powerful with his mouth. Now what was the result? The ground opened, everything was swallowed inside. Everything. Everything and everything. Everybody who stood next to Korach got swallowed inside. One person made a problem, deciding to go against the Moshe Rabbeinu, and everybody goes down. Why is this message so profound? Is because I have to decide who I attach myself to. You want to attach yourself to a tzaddik, to the person of truth. Why? Because he will teach you and will affect you to be truthful, to go in the path of the Torah. No foolish sticks, as they say, no games. You attach yourself to a wicked person, very soon you are going to be in their path. You might not be doing what they're doing, but you're going to be affected from them. What they say, their opinions, who they talk about. When I became observant, it was a very confusing state in my life. I was in my late 20s, going into 30. And I'm going into the world of the Torah like that. Big hopes. Every neighborhood that I went to, it took about 2 months to be totally disappointed from the neighborhood. I would come to the neighborhood, everybody dressed in black, beards, hats, running in the morning to the Bet Knesset. Wow. I was afraid to move there. Everybody here is tzaddikim. I'm like this big wicked person. And then I would find out that person cheats on his wife, this person cheats in business, this person talks lashon hara all day long, this person is a thief, this person is fake. What's going on here? Well, they're celebrating Purim every day? So it would take me 2-3 months. Okay, I'm out of this place. I'll go to another neighborhood. Same thing. Same thing here, same thing here, same thing here. I got so confused. Every rabbi that I attached to myself to, I was, wow, in the beginning, so knowledgeable, so much Torah. And then I found out this rabbi is talking lashon hara all day long. This rabbi is looking into this direction all day long. This rabbi is all he cares about is money. What's going on here? I was very confused because I was coming to the world of Torah with great hopes, and all I found is deception and lying and slandering and hate and jealousy. Till I met finally a smart person, and I told him, how do you find the right person? And he gave me the right guidance, who to attach myself to. He gave me a few keys that up until today are echoing in my mind. And he told me, if you see a person, doesn't matter beard or not, but their agenda is to cause disagreement, move away. You see a rabbi that his agenda is to make peace, you go close to this person. A true rabbi will come to make peace, not to make separation and disagreements and arguments. He gave me a few keys and he told me, you see a person, I don't care how long his beard is, how black his hat is, the person is not honest or truthful, move away. And when you see a person talking about another person, you run away like fire from that person. I don't care how long his beard is, I don't care how many tracts of Talmud he knows off by heart. So you see now in our generation, in a very profound way all around us, I see it with my own eyes, how good, innocent, good-hearted people come to a certain place. If I see them going to this direction, it's a matter of weeks before I know that person is going to become a rotten apple, like the rotten apples that he's hanging out with. And I see it with my own eyes. I see good people coming with a lot of hopes, a lot of excitement, and I see where they go. And I know they're going to go over there. That's a matter of weeks before that person is going to think a certain way, talk a certain way, behave a certain way. Why am I telling all this? You have to be very smart who you attach yourself to. And you know, especially in the world of the Torah, this can be very deceptive, very confusing. And Hashem Erachem, if I would tell you now the stories and situations and what's going on here just around us, not talking right now in Yerushalayim, not in New York, not anywhere, here in the little city that is barely a 2-kilometer diameter, what's going on in the city. Oy vay voy, you will jump out of your skin if you would hear what I can tell you or have to tell you about most of the people that you know even in the city. You'll be shocked, traumatized, and your tongue will be dropped out if some of the things that I know, heard of, and found out will be exposed in a way would be detrimental and devastating. But why am I saying that? Because it's not only here, it's everywhere. Everywhere that I went to, I told you I went to so many different communities in my path, and I constantly kept the key of what this person told me. You see an environment, you see a shul that all they talk there is lashon hara, take your tefillin, go and never come back into that shul. You see a place that all they do is they talk bad about another person, they talk here, they do this, they do that. You move yourself away right away. Why? You'll be affected from it like that. Doesn't care who you are, doesn't matter who you are. Elazar ben Arach, he got affected, you're going to be affected too. You sitting in a shul that all day long they talk, you'll start talking too. You'll be in a community that all they do is they make disagreements and separations and machlokot. You'll be part of it too. Or you think you are the only saint one? You just need to be smart. Is first of all, who are your neighbors? Anywhere that you go, who are my neighbors? I told you already, I have 3 friends. 7.4 billion people in this world have 3 friends. I choose who I attach myself to. I don't attach myself to almost anybody because I right away see how other people behave. Thank you so much. I don't want to be included anywhere and anywhere. I recognize very quickly the key things, what will cause any person to go bad. Take now a beautiful, luscious peach, put it in a box with other peaches that are rotten, it will be rotten within hours. So this parasha comes to tell me, in the Midbar, you know what was going on there? There was Lashon Hara all the time. All the time. You think we invented Lashon Hara? There was Lashon Hara in the desert. And against who? Against Moshe Rabbeinu. Not against some hoodlum. Against the leader that we never had such a leader. Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu, speaks to the Kadosh Baruch Hu face to face, the only prophet that gets prophecy while he's awake. And people talk about him Lashon Hara. His own sister talks about him Lashon Hara. His cousin, Korach, talks about him Lashon Hara. And what was the result? Disaster. So you have to be very, very smart. Who are your neighbors? Now, I said in the beginning, it's not fair how the order is. Do you think you choose where you live? The Baal Shem Tov says a person is being taken from above and he's placed. Adam molichim oto milemala. You don't choose where you go. You think you choose. From the heavens they already decide where you're going to live. So if you're already living in a certain place, now you open your eyes and you see, who are my neighbors? Where am I putting myself? In which synagogue am I praying? In which crowd am I hanging? Where am I sitting? And I'm very quick, and that's hopefully what I'm trying to give over to other people, I'm very quick to see who's around me. And if I'm in a crowd that they talk Lashon Hara, thank you so much, I don't want to be hanging out here. I don't want to be attached to any person that talks Lashon Hara. You talk Lashon Hara, it only will take one time for you to talk Lashon Hara with me, and you'll never be talking to me ever again. I might be smiling to you, yes, yes. Quickly I'll answer you a quick question, but you are out of my book. I disattach myself very quickly from any person that can cause the ground to open under my legs. If any person around me is a shachen ra, as a bad neighbor, I don't need to live next to you. I don't want to be associated with you in any type of a way. If you want to come to my domain and be affected what I have to say, you're more than welcome. If you're going to bring your junk into my domain, you're out. So this parasha is coming to teach me, it's not about being fair. It's about choosing your neighbors. Who are my neighbors? And who am I listening to? And what am I receiving to? And the sad reality is, this is the sad reality. I'm not going to mention now situations, names, or anything else. But the sad reality that I see with my own eyes, good, honest, good-hearted people come, they're hanging out with one person, two pairs, with three people for 3-4 weeks, that person is already burnt out completely. The whole opinion changes completely. See it with my eyes every day. So I'm not saying that to chas v'shalom, to put somebody down. I'm saying that maybe you'll be some of the smart ones that's saying, who am I attaching myself to? After that person that I met told me a few key things, I looked, who am I attaching myself to? And most people disappointed me, because most people, they do slander, they talk Lashon Hara, they lie, they're dishonest, they're fake, and so forth. I don't want to be next to you. I have nothing to do next to you. It took me a long time till I found a rabbi, because that was like finding a needle in a haystack. Till I found one person who was authentic, the real deal. No agenda, no nonsense. No looking for arguments and fights and power. And he's more powerful, I'm more smarter, I have a bigger congregation. It's all nonsense. So the point is not to look at it and to just recognize it, to choose who are your neighbors. You attach yourself to a tzaddik, you'll go in that direction. You attach yourself to a bad neighbor, a shachen ra, the path is very short before you're going to be in their domain, in their territory, and the result, we're going to read about it in a few weeks. Korach had a problem with anger, he had a problem with jealousy, he had a problem with, he had many problems, but it all started from jealousy. He wanted to be the Moshe Rabbeinu, he wanted to be the leader, he wanted to be the number one. This is where you see that jealousy is one of the worst things in this world. Our sages say, Kin'a motzi et ha'adam min ha'olam. Jealousy will take you out of this world. And he was so vicious that look what he did. Look how many people he pulled after him in his political campaign. But when you're going against a Moshe Rabbeinu, it's just a matter of time before the Kadosh Baruch Hu pulls the plug. Or how do you say it I don't know how you say it in English. In Hebrew there's a term to it, how you flush the toilet, you go and everything goes down the drain. So there's a certain level, a certain point, how much a Kadosh Baruch Hu can take that you're going against his leader. Shem at some point says, enough is enough, I don't care who you are. And you have to be very careful, who are you attaching yourself to? And the key things here, and this is what the rabbi told me, and that's what I follow, you run away from any type of slander, any type of lashon hara, any type of lying, deception, jealousy, power, separation, machlokot, disagreements. You see all these things. Thank you so much. I'll pray by myself. I don't need to be in this minyan. I don't need to be in this synagogue. If all you do here is talk or slander or this or that, thank you so much. I'll go pray by myself. Baruch Hashem, there's 50 synagogues here in Tzfat. I'll find where to pray. There was one city that I lived in. I prayed for 5 months by myself. No minyan. Couldn't find a minyan. Every minyan, one was worse than the other. So I prayed by myself. Not the end of the world. The point you want to take from that, since we're starting a whole new period, a whole new book, Sefer Bamidbar, it's going to tell us now a lot of things that was going on in the desert. But look at the most profound stories that happened in the desert. All lashon hara. All jealousy and lashon hara. And what was the result? So this is the key, and we see, I told you already, we're going to start very soon a whole course about lashon hara, where we're going to learn all the halachot on one side, and on the other side we're going to learn all the mystical part of lashon hara. What happens in lashon hara, and slandering, and otzad diba, and all these things. That unfortunately in our generation, people think that we have a problem with arayot, we have a problem with immodesty and things like that. We have a serious problem with lashon hara, by the way. And like it always brought devastation and destruction in the past, it will bring it again, unless it's going to stop. And the thing is that it's everywhere. The hate, the resentment, the jealousy, the slandering, the lying, all this, Hashem Erachem, it's going to kill us. It's like a cancer. So you want to choose who are your neighbors. Why? Go by the Psak Halacha, by the law, the Halacha that Rambam even says. You are pulled, a person is pulled in his opinion and his actions based on what he hears and who he hangs out with. Attach yourself to the right people. Even if you don't have a lot, some people think they need a lot of people around them. You need a few good ones. You don't need 500 fake ones. If you recognize right away the quality in the person around you, it's very, very hard. I remember I went once to a certain town and I met a few people. All they did was slander everybody around them. And in the beginning, it was done in such a mischievous way that it came as, I'm warning you to be careful from them. At some point, I was like, I need to be warned once. I don't need to hear every little thing. Just tell me, stay away from this person, he's a bad apple. I don't need to hear every time what the person did. At some point, I was like, you know who's the problem? It's not the person there's slandering. It's you are the problem. Because you don't know how to shut up. And very fast, I was like, I don't want to be hanging out with these people. I don't want to hang out with a person that is a certain individual all day long, just lashon hara. Sorry to tell you, I don't want to be a part of this. So to conclude, we are here in a very dangerous zone because we're looking for communities, we're looking for friends, we're looking to a place to hang out where I can live, where I can pray, where I can socialize. But nevertheless, I have to choose where I am in a very, very precise way. Who am I putting myself next to? And here is where you see that the majority will go after, I want to hang out here, it looks much more lively. So everybody goes there. So one has to be very, very careful where you put yourself, because it's not that you are the bad person, but you hang out with the wrong crowd, you'll be affected. And it's exactly like when you go to all these political campaigns. Why do they do that? They're able to, you drill something too much, at some point you start believing it. And usually the evil side will be able to present a situation that you are convinced 100%, wow, that person is so right. But going back to the advice that I got, this advice is worth millions. The person told me any true, the words that he says is a true Eved Hashem, a true man of God, will never slander, will never say lashon hara, not even once, not even to make a point out, not even to prove even anything. And he told me then, you see he was telling me about a rabbi, because I was telling him, I can't find even a rabbi, forget about a community, I can't find a rabbi. Told me any rabbi that you catch in one time lying, cheating, slandering, saying lashon hara, presenting any type of hate, any type of jealousy, any type of disagreement, machloket, separation, ununity, anything, you move back and you run away from that person like fire, because that person will bring you down with his beard, with his hat, with his Torah. So you want to take from this parasha is, who are my neighbors? You don't need a lot of neighbors, you just need good neighbors. As Rambam says, you have to be attached to tzaddikim. That's what the Mishnah says. You find the tzaddik and you get dirty in the dust of their legs. But move yourself away from any person that their whisper, that's what how the Mishnah says, the whisper is like a snake, like a deadly snake. You know how the deadliest snakes, they have a sound. These are the deadly snakes. They whisper. Move away. Neshichatam neshichat nachash. They bite you like a snake, or their sting like a scorpio. So we want to take this parasha and not only talk about and understand the physical structure, how they're in the desert, to understand that I am subject to be affected by where I put myself. And you have to have your eyes open very, very wide, because usually it comes in a very very decepting way. Ooh, that person is right. Ooh, thank you so much for warning me from this person. You have to understand where you put yourself around. A person that lies, slanders, talks lashon hara, cheats, has jealousy, and so forth, and the list is long, there's nothing good going on there. There's no good agenda there. You move yourself away from that, because eventually you will believe everything that person says, and eventually when the time for Hashem to flush the toilet, like Korach, the ground opens and everything goes down. It says that everything went down with Korach. Their houses, their belongings, their cars, their animals, everything was affected. B'ezrat Hashem, we should have the right ability and the awareness to know how to look who I'm putting around me, and where am I putting myself around me, and who am I associating with? Who am I attaching myself to? Don't be afraid to have only 3 friends, or to have in a small group. It's not the quantity, it's the quality. You got to be very, very aware who you're attaching yourself. I attach to myself only to Anshe Emet, to people of truth. Because a person that lies cannot go parallel with the Torah. It doesn't work like that. We talked about it many times. A person who's truthful, honest, always do the right in the eyes of Hashem. Then you don't go wrong. You'll never go wrong with that person. Not too long ago I spoke with somebody and I told him, it's the difference between me. He was really putting down a lot of religious people, and anyways, it was a problem. And of course with the ad of a lot of lashon hara, it really damaged the transaction that was supposed to happen. And I told him, listen, you know me well enough. I can tell you one thing that I don't. I don't lie. You know why? I'm afraid of God. I'm not afraid of anybody. I'm not afraid of any individual in this world, not every human being in this world, definitely not an animal. I'm only afraid of one thing, and that's God. And God tells you, don't lie, I'm afraid. Not one word of lie will ever come out of my mouth. And whatever Hashem tells me, I don't do, even though sometimes it's very, very tempting. Sometimes it's extremely tempting to open my mouth. Some people are very lucky that I don't open my mouth. Ooh, what would happen if I would open my mouth? So, but that's the will of the Kadosh Baruch Hu. So I do what Hashem wants, not what other people do, and I don't cave to pressure from anything. Why? I go what Hashem says. And Hashem says, do not lie. Don't lie, even though sometimes it's not convenient. But nevertheless, a person who's really God-fearing, that's who the person that you want to be attached to, because the person will not do you wrong. Will not take you to the wrong place. The result will not be devastating or detrimental. Why? Because the person can only take you to a place of Torah, a place of good. So we see who attached themselves to Moshe Rabbeinu, they were successful. You disattach yourself from the tzaddik, from the emet, and you go to the side of a Korach, and don't think that Korach was not convincing. Korach, first of all, was a Talmid Chacham. He knew the Torah inside out. First of all, let's not ignore the situation. He was a cousin. He was Moshe Rabbeinu's cousin. He's from the familia. Second of all, he was a genius in the Torah. He knew the Torah inside out. More than that, he was a billionaire. More than that, he was a politician. He had everything. Everybody fell for his shtick like that. Everybody believed him. Oh, Korach. But nobody saw, or what they say, read between the line. I don't care who you are. You slander somebody else, You talk Lashon Hara about somebody else, even though, there's a big difference between Lashon Hara and slandering. Lashon Hara is true. Lashon Hara is me telling you something that is 100% true. Slandering is when I say a lie about that person. It's two different things. But either way, a true person, do you ever see Moshe Rabbeinu talking Lashon Hara? No. Even though, trust me, I guarantee to you that Moshe Rabbeinu had a lot more to say. And he had all the authority to say. Nothing. You think in the machloket with Moshe and Korach, that Moshe answered back? Moshe took a step back. Even worse. The Torah says, Vayipol al panav vayev. He fell on his face and started crying. Maybe I did something wrong. So you have to be very, very sensitive and perceptive. Who's around you? The Zohar says that at the end of days, before Mashiach is going to come, most of the rabbinical authority will be Erev Rav. A mixture of against the Torah. Erev Rav. Yeah, with beards and hats and everything. Rashi Yeshivot. You see it with your own eyes. So you want to attach yourself to the right neighbor, to the right person. You don't have to be the most popular citizen in the city, but you have to attach yourself to the right people, to be attached to a shachen tov, to a good neighbor. Exactly what Yochanan ben Zakkai was asking. What was the conclusion? I see his words that shachen tov is more important than anything. You put yourself next to a good person, you'll be affected. You put yourself in the wrong crowd, you will slowly, without even noticing, deteriorate, and the worst of all, that you will be convinced that you are 100% okay. That's where the problem is. That you are convinced, no, I'm doing fine. I'm still in a shul. Yeah, the shul only talks Lashon Hara all day long, but I'm in a shul. That's enough. So hopefully, some of the words will fall on open ears. I know many of my words fall on deaf ears, but nevertheless, the smart person takes the words and applies it in their life. So Be'ezrat Hashem, very soon, the ground is going to open underneath us exactly how it opened on the Korach. By the way, you want to make sure on which ground you are standing. And that's inevitable. Without, good, bad, Mashiach is coming very, very soon. The ground will open. It's not that I'm saying that chas v'shalom to scare, to make people worry. Even if Mashiach comes in the best way possible, will still have to be a destruction, by the way. Even if it comes in the nicest way. Because in order to go into a new reality, the old reality has to be destroyed. That's how it works in this world. That's a pattern in this world. So there will have to be some type of distraction. The way we are going now in our generation, I'm not so convinced that Mashiach is coming in a very smooth way. I am actually more convinced that Mashiach is coming in a massive storm that I don't even know if most people know how to hold for this storm. So I highly recommend that before the storm comes, before the ground opens, you decide where you're standing, because very few people stood with Moshe Rabbeinu, and they're the ones who were able to survive. The ones who decided not to stand with the Moshe Rabbeinu, then the ground opened and the rest is history. Be'ezrat Hashem, you'll have a little bit now of more wisdom how to choose, or so to say better, who to choose, that will make your neighbor.